Hello, midlifers. Today's guest is an expert coach who's worked with many people and organizations looking to life well. She looks at how midlife has impacted on her own identity, relationships, and community, and she explores how her midlife experiences have shaped her coaching work. It's a super warm and honest discussion with much wisdom within. I hope you find it enjoyable and useful. So, hello, Claire Pedrick.
Hello, Chris.
Welcome to our Midlife Murmurings. Would you like to introduce yourself and your work?
So I'm Claire, and I don't know where I am in midlife. You could do therapy with me for the next however long. I started an organisation called 3D Coaching in the 1990s. I'm a coach. I'm a coaching supervisor. I train coaches. And since I became 60, I do a lot of writing and podcasts and webinars and generally a little bit more of what I want to do and a little bit less of the operational side of the business.
So let's start though with the opening question of what does midlife mean to you?
Richard Raw talks about the second half of life, when you're not striving for the things that you had to strive for in the first half of life. So for me, that's not doing the school run. You know, I appreciate not everyone has children, but not worrying about the mortgage, not whatever. So there's a lot of knots there, I notice. I think it's the bit between being knackered and being on the way to being dead, actually. My dad used to say, so my dad died when he was 91, and he used to say, most people are all right till they're 80, and then it all might go a little bit wobbly.
So you have the golden window now ahead of you before the
So-
wobbles start.
So for me, midlife is a place where I think probably we have slightly less obligation and slightly more choice. And there's just an awful lot of processing that needs to happen. And, you know, this is the age where friends and family are dying. Some of them are in the generation above us, and some of them are our peers. You know, I've had 5 friends die in the last 7 years. They were all exactly the same age. I'm not going to say the number because I've got a bit of an issue about it, but they were all exactly the same age. So that also makes you, I think it certainly made me reflect for myself on the meaning of life, because it's short. You don't know how long you've got.
What do you think coaching can offer to those who are in midlife?
I think coaching offers a place for people to think about it. Some people can think about it on their own. So they'll go, actually, let me really make my questions about midlife the right size. You know, what's my question about midlife? Oh, my question about midlife is this. And then they can go and explore and answer and do all those things. Other people need a bit more challenge, support, accountability, companionship in the processing of. So I think having places where you can talk about it really matters. So I think the role of the coach is to be a thinking companion, an advocate, a supporter, somebody who's with us. Sometimes I think coaching is a place to say the thing we dare not say in the company of somebody who will bear witness to it being spoken.
And to give ourselves permission just to go and say it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as you give people that space to think, you see some underlying themes that come through with the people who come for coaching in midlife?
I think there's often a question about purpose. What am I here for? And that can bring up all sorts of not knowing, confusion, stuckness. I think there's something about a real tension between finance and flourishing, which can come together and not always don't necessarily come together. So a question I often ask people who are beginning to wonder when they're not going to be working anymore for money, you know, what will your calling be? What will your vocation be? What will your purpose be when you no longer need to earn money? And you know, the midlife thing is a very extendable and long piece, isn't it? Because I met somebody when I did the Camino, which is what often people do in midlife, the walk across Spain. There are a lot of midlife people on the Camino. I met somebody in her 40s who'd retired, and I interviewed her for my podcast this week because she's been to all 193 countries in the world. And she said she's going to end her retirement next year and go back to work.
Did she think that was the next step for her?
I think she's probably run out of money. I would imagine. But I can remember my dad being 40 and everyone was talking about a midlife crisis. Well, for me now, 40 is very, I mean, when I was 40, I felt young. And, we can't imagine what the generation above us is experiencing or feeling or anything, can we? But I perceived 40 as young, and I also perceived 50 as young. And I can remember my grandma. I was talking about this to my cousins the other day. My grandma, we thought she was old when she was 55. And now I'm 63 and I still feel quite young. I mean, my body is at some point in the next however long going to go, you're not as young as you think, love. But
Well, 80, according to your father.
yes, exactly. Hope I've inherited their health genes.
The thing about purpose, the people you've worked with, do people typically find new purpose when they reach that midlife and that questioning? Or is typically that purpose something that has been there before midlife?
Well, I think sometimes some people are fortunate enough to find their purpose young and to really be able to live with it and live it out. Some people take longer, I think, to find their purpose. And I think sometimes one purpose can morph into another. Everybody's an individual. It's very different, people's experiences. And I think sometimes there's a fear of finding out our purpose. There's a point where we start asking those existential questions. What am I here for? What's my legacy? What am I leaving behind? What difference am I making? And I think there's permission at midlife to explore those more. But they're scary questions.
And this is the role of the coach, I guess, to help sit with those scary questions and give space to think about how they are.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just to sit. Because actually, for some people, coaching is the opportunity, maybe for the first time ever, to slow down and to think, what actually are my questions? That's really scary. And life-giving and amazing, but, it depends who you are.
Yeah. And things that might have distracted us through our busy years.
Yeah.
Now have a bit more space to quiet.
So I work, my husband is retired. This is very interesting when it comes to people that we see socially, because my friends who work are surprised that he doesn't work, and his friends who are retired think I shouldn't be working. So now we don't have a mortgage and my husband has a pension. The whole of life feels really different. But I can remember for years and years and years and years, he was the main breadwinner. I mean, I had a good job and money coming in, but he earned more than I did. And his company would make redundancies every 6 months. They'd have a round of redundancies. So every 6 months would be the question, will it be this time?
Yeah.
And it's very hard when that's the culture that you're living in to be able to ask any deep and meaningful questions, because actually it's, are we going to get through another 6 months? Because so much of our lifestyle, which was a very simple lifestyle really, but was predicated on the fact that the mortgage had to be paid and we needed a car and you have to eat and all those things,
And now those things are taken care of.
Yeah, and that's still a bit weird.
How has him working, being the main breadwinner, to you working and him being retired, changed the dynamic in the relationship?
Well, maybe you should be talking to our therapists.
Excellent.
We're both in therapy. That might be the answer to your question. There's also something about the switch. So his job was made redundant and he left the week before lockdown, or the day before the first lockdown of COVID. At which point I stopped working invisibly, as in I was traveling 3 nights a week and working all over the country and working from an office. So his retirement and my working from home were simultaneous. So he lost his identity as a scientist. I brought my work into the house, and what I did became more explicit because he could hear it. So it's a really interesting shift. And there's something I think about being out of sync with your partner in terms of the midlife processing. I think we have been out of sync, and also we're still out of sync because I don't want to stop working and he isn't working. So all the negotiations around leisure and space and all of those things are interesting. And he does all the cooking.
For those who are journeying midlife with a partner who may be out of sync, have you got any good thinking questions they could be asking?
I think there's something about what is it that we want together and what is it that we want separately, and what needs to be explicit that we might not actually be articulating, because there's a renegotiation. If you don't have children and you're full on working, your choices and your opportunities and what you can do are different from when there's more flex in your world. And I think there's also something about what do I want to do on my own, and how much permission do I give, how much opportunity do I offer to you, if you want to take it, for you to do things on your own. If you're in a similar season with somebody, that doesn't mean you want to do everything together. And I talk to friends now who are women who are going, I'm going to retire now because I want to have 2 or 3 years before he retires. Because I want to be able to find a way of, I want to make this me shaped. And some of the me shape is stuff that I'm going to do on my own. It's not stuff that I want us to do together, because we are together and we are individuals. And, for people who are single, that's a whole different set of questions, I think.
And the shift that comes through midlife as people re-establish their roles and their place. Sometimes we see people choose to do radical changes as well. Things that haven't been right before now get addressed. How does coaching help people who know that some of the foundations are wrong?
Well, I think then there's something about having a safe place to think about stuff and to process it and to look at the what if. But in the end, it's, do I have the courage? There's courage and pragmatism, isn't there? There's what's the courage that I might need in order to be able to make a big decision. But there's also pragmatism, which is what I know better than what I don't know. And I think it's a really tricky place. And I think for women my age, we become invisible just when we're getting our power and we're not nurturing the family and all of those kind of things. We become invisible. And when I say become invisible, I mean get pushed off the pavement. So my experience of going grey and getting older is that I can walk through the town and somebody will walk at me coming the other way and they won't see me, and I will be off the pavement. And that's not an unusual experience for women of my age, which men don't experience. And I was with my husband recently, and we were walking on a really narrow piece of pavement, and I was in front of him and somebody was coming the other way, and he saw it happen. And he said, I didn't really understand what you meant by that until I saw it. It's very interesting.
How has your own midlife shaped the way you coach?
Oh, I'm a lot less bothered now, Chris. I think there's something about being more spacious in the way I coach. The challenge for me of midlife, which I suppose is an opportunity as well as a challenge, is that for many people, midlife, having said I'm invisible at home in the neighborhood. At work, I'm more visible than I've ever been before, and I'm at the peak of my career, and therefore that becomes a really tricky thing, because I do have less energy. And recovery takes longer and all those things that you think you can do it, and then your body goes, oh, I'm a bit exhausted now. When I was 60, I walked the Camino de Santiago for 6 weeks. And because I wanted to, and it was a promise to a friend, there were lots of reasons for doing it. But actually, one of the reasons for doing it was that I had handed over the running of my business to somebody else, to Sue, my colleague. And taking 3 months off was an opportunity for them to be able to take it on without me interfering. So that when I came back, my work life is very different now. My coaching is more spacious. I didn't do a lot, but I think I do less now. Having a therapist of my own helps me to see where the boundaries are between therapy and coaching, or where the messy edges. The more work I do on my own humanity self, the more I'm able to hold space for others. So I think probably in the coaching that I do now is often deeper, because they say we can only coach where we've been. I don't think that's true, but I do think that if we haven't done deep stuff, it's really hard to do deep coaching. So those are some of the things.
That's really helpful. Thank you. I'd love to dig into the Camino a little bit, if we may, because
Yeah,
that's on my
please.
list, and I know it's on many others' list as well. So you had 6 weeks walking the Camino. Which leg did you do, and how did you find it as a midlifer?
So I went with 3 other people, and everybody has a Camino name. So in Spain, pilgrim is peregrino, but you name people so that when you meet someone else, you can say, oh, did you meet Dutch Peter? And I went with 3 other people, and our name was Andrew and the English Ladies. So there was something about a little bit of losing my identity in the pilgrimage, and I am going to do it again on my own. And it was an amazing thing to do with them. And I think that because I was with them, we were together, and therefore it was fantastic. And also I want to do it on my own. So we flew to Bilbao, and we walked from Bilbao down to Riba de Sella, and then we went from Oviedo to Santiago on the Primitiva. So we did the coast and then down through the most ancient path. So we didn't do the French way, which is what most people do. And it's full of people. Not everybody, but many people have got a reason for walking, and they're walking something. Yeah, they're walking something out. They're walking for a reason. And if you walk with them for long enough, they'll tell you what it is. It was an extraordinary experience. It's not easy, although once you've got up every day and walked with a pack and stopped and gone to sleep and got up and walked with the pack, and it gets easier because your body just gets into this flow, and you don't have to make any decisions. You just keep following the arrow.
For those who are about to pack up or thinking about packing up, any good questions for them to help prepare for the walk on the Camino or similar?
What's the least that you need to take with you? Because it's a lot less than you think. And I think that was a life lesson, which I think is also now true in my life, which is actually I don't need very much. I mean, I have a lot of amazing things because, UK, house, garden, car, art, beautiful things. But I think for the Camino, it is what's the least that I need to take with me. And it is a lot less than you think. And living without anything is a really amazing, 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 amazing thing. And we heard, and it was true for us, that if you can walk 10 miles a day, 2 days in a row with a pack, you can do it, because then you train by walking when you get there. But it's scary, it's risky, because you've got no control, because you don't know where you're going to sleep tonight. I mean, you can book the whole thing out. You've then got to walk the distance that you thought you were going to be able to walk. Whereas if you don't book anything out, you can stop if you're tired and keep going if you're not tired, keep going if there's nowhere to sleep. There's a saying that says the Camino provides, but you really do have to say, I'm going to walk into this. This is a huge risk. We don't know whether we're going to be able to eat. I am really seriously allergic to wheat, which means I can't eat bread. So for me, even the food was a risk. And you've just got to, I mean, I did a little bit of research that's made it feel like it was going to be okay. And it was okay mostly. Yeah, but you've just got to take a breath and go. And, at our age, at my age, sharing a dormitory with 17 other people is quite the experience.
And the snoring, I imagine, was something else.
Loop earplugs, if anyone wants
That's your other top tip.
Yes, loop earplugs.
Because they're small, light and effective.
Absolutely, and they do keep the sound out, and an eye mask. But you're so exhausted, you sleep.
Is there anything else you'd like midlifers to know from either your professional or personal walk?
I think there's something about make the most of it, because having travelled with friends with very acutely life-limiting illnesses, we don't know when the day's going to come when we're not going to be able to do these things. And it could be when you're 80, or it could be when you're 90, or it could be next week. So I think for me, there's something about how do you really make the most of what's available to us, but also something about not striving. I mean, now, having been somebody who loved the world and travel and everything else, I don't want to leave Malvern because I really, really like my life here. I
Yeah.
barely get in the car. I just have my life in a very small place and I really like it. So, because we made a big midlife decision 5 years ago to move 3 hours from where we lived before and start again. And that was a great decision.
Has that surprised you how much you enjoy that place and that space?
It's a risk. I can remember it was the day before a baby who I love was born. So it was 11 years ago, having a conversation with his parents who were in their 30s. And Pete said to me, would you ever move? And I said, I don't know. And he said, it's hard for you, isn't it? Because you're much more impacted by the people than the place. So he said some people who wanted to move could just go and choose their ideal and perfect house and they'd move to it and they'd be super happy. But he said, you wouldn't be, because actually you're much more influenced by who you meet and who's around. And of course, you've got much less control about that because you don't know who the neighbours are going to be and the people that you're going to meet and all those things. So I created my own community. But there's something about finding fellow travellers on the road who you can engage and talk with and explore with, and people who can have your corner and be in your a bit of a tribe. So as a coach, I was a bit under pressure for work and somebody said, oh, you should meet so-and-so. So another coach. So I said, let's go for a walk. And then I said, well, if we're going for a walk, do you mind if I invite some other people who I don't know? So I put something on LinkedIn and said, we're going for a walk on Saturday at this time. We're meeting at this place. 17 people came. I don't think I was consciously planning that, but that was my way into finding my tribe here. And one of them is one of my closest friends now. It's a very different phase of midlife, which is a really fun thing because they're much younger than me.
I guess much of your community is also online, right? Because of the work you do and the way you do it as well.
Yeah. I mean, I am deeply connected online through podcasts, for example, where every week I talk to somebody really extraordinary and have a beautiful, deep conversation. And those actually are some of the conversations that you don't generally have with people around unless you meet a team of people who are interested in that kind of stuff.
That brings us nicely to how people can get in touch with you or hear some of the podcasts. Do you want to just give an introduction to you and your work?
Yeah, so the podcast is The Coaching In. It's wherever you listen to your podcasts, also on YouTube. And we talk to all sorts of interesting people. So there's this episode coming up with April about walking the Camino and going to 193 countries in the world. If you're interested in goals, if you want to contact me, my email address is Claire, CLAIRE at 3dcoaching.com, the number 3dcoaching.com. And I'm on LinkedIn. Those are the best places to find me.
Very good. And as someone who has benefited hugely personally from the coaching training that 3D offer, I can definitely recommend there, and 3D is a place to go. Well, thank you very much indeed, Claire.
Thank you.
It was lovely speaking to you. That was really super. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for listening, everyone. Bye.
Thanks for being here with us for Midlife Murmurings. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe and share with a friend. And do search out the Midlife Murmurings LinkedIn group to add your stories and questions to our growing midlife murmuration. Until next time, take care and fly well.